Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio. Every fourth Thursday, we get to travel down the Jefferson Highway or up the highway, depending on which direction you want to go. The Jefferson Highway is a historic highway started in 1915. It goes from Winnipeg, Canada to New Orleans, or you can say it goes from New Orleans to Winnipeg. And Nancy and I have traveled this back and forth. We have not done Winnipeg yet. We've touched a little bit of Minnesota, but we've done a lot of the highway this year and some parts years before, but didn't really know we were on this historic route. And it is beautiful. And we've been doing this show for over a year and a half now, I think it is. In connection with the Jefferson Highway Association. And that's how the trail began. And so every fourth Thursday, here we are talking about another topic. Maybe it's the conference, the annual conference that happens. But today it's about artists because August is American Artist Appreciation Month. And we thought, let's look about like art on the highway. I will tell you, there are murals up and down the highway.
Oh, yeah.
Nancy and I know, we're like, oh, wow. And there's museums, there's galleries. I would say the Midwest wins in art in a lot of ways that we didn't know about. I'm not saying Texas and New Orleans and Louisiana don't, like they're good too. But this year, we were amazed. So today's guests, as always, we have Roger Bell, the president of the Jefferson Highway Association, and the website is jeffersonhighway.org. And you need to go there. And all the links that we talk about in the show today are in the show notes, no matter if you're listening on YouTube or Facebook or, I was going to say Twitter. No, Google, Apple, wherever you are listening from, the links are in the show notes so you can follow up to the places you want to. So welcome back, Roger. How are you?
I'm good, Lisa. Good to be here.
Good.
Hey, it is good to have you back and excited to talk about art. I know we could always talk about murals till the cows come home, right? But this is a really special show thinking about American artists on the highway. And it's kind of as big of a rabbit hole as we talked about music, right? We can do a show every month and never finish, right?
Yeah, we scratched the surface in music about this time last year when we had a show on jazz history, and that's I've even learned a lot more in the last few months about some things on that. But this art is going to be one of those things we're going to delve into it today a little bit. But there is so much culture on this trip down the Jefferson Highway, and art is a very important part of it.
Awesome. I love this. And we have Arlene Gould, who is also on the board of directors for the Jefferson Highway, but is also the executive director of the Natchitoches Convention and Visitor Bureau. And Natchitoches is the oldest city in Louisiana. They've also hosted the annual conference for the Jefferson Highway. They have their own park for the Jefferson Highway. Her office is on the Jefferson Highway. I'm just saying. It is one of our favorite places in the planet. Like it is. Yeah. Jefferson Highway leads to Natchitoches, and you need to go because there's meat pies, there's friendly people, there's Cane River Lake, there's so much history.
Just beautiful.
So just go check out Natchitoches.com, which is Natchitoches. So how we say it, how we spell it out are two different things. It's NATCHITOCHES.com. Did I get that right, Arlene?
You got it.
Well, awesome. It's good to hear your voice.
Hey, Arlene.
Yeah.
How are you? I know, because she's been sponsoring the show for over a year and a half. That's right. I better get it right. That's right. You know it. But welcome back.
Thank you. Well, it's always a pleasure to talk about Jefferson Highway. It's one of those things that's near and dear to my heart for a long time. So getting to promote it and talk about it and trying to get people to experience it brings me great pleasure.
Awesome. Well, I know that you have some art definitely reigns supreme in Natchitoches too, not just music and food art, because I'm going to say culinary arts is a big deal. You have like a wonderful art gallery. It's a co-op gallery downtown, not far from your office. That
It's the
is,
Natchitoches Art Guild, yes.
it's dangerous because you go in there, you want to start buying stuff immediately, and it's beautiful. And we've seen okra art, okra pods art. We've seen coffee art. We've seen all kinds of things that you wouldn't normally expect. But I know today, and we're going to get to it in a little bit here. I want to introduce people on the show, but you're going to be talking about Clementine Hunter today, right?
That is correct.
Awesome. Awesome.
A true
And-
folk artist and legend in her own right. So, yep,
Yep.
Clementine Hunter.
Cool.
Can we touch on Carolyn Dormon just a tad too? Because like her art is important too. Okay, good. Thank you. I have to. I love her. I do. She is who, I mean, the Kisatchie National Forest, the only national forest in the state of Louisiana, wouldn't exist without her. And it's an important thing. So I want to bring Sean Barney on the show. Sean is the executive director for the Five Civilized Tribes Museum in Muskogee. He's not far away from Roger. They're around the corner from each other, basically, because I know this because when we drove into Muskogee, we thought we were going into the city, and then we realized everything's pretty close by. So welcome to this show, Sean. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Hey,
Good.
you know, we're excited. I want people to know your website, fivetribes.org, and that's not the number fives. Just type it out, you know,
Type it out.
fivetribes.org. Yeah, we're going to talk about the building, but you guys, I just want to give a big shout out that you are honored as True West Magazine honored Top Western Museums of 2023, and your museum is listed in there, and that's a big deal. You're number 4. Not number
You're
9
number
or
4.
10, number 4. This is a big deal because it's not just art, right?
It
This
is.
is museum as a whole.
Yeah, it's history, culture, and art. The cool thing is that we beat the Oklahoma Cowboy Heritage Center, which we're tough rivals. So it was kind of cool. They're number. I think they're
That's
number
funny.
9. So,
Oh, but hey,
they've got $1 million budget, so it's kind of nice that the underdog beat them.
oh, I love, and you know what? I was like amazed that Lubbock got in there. We go to Lubbock all the time, the National Ranching Heritage Center. Someone just talked to me like, why do you go to Lubbock all the time? And I'm like, I don't know. Buddy Holly was there and stuff, you know, and we know really cool cats because we travel the country and hang out with animals. But like I
Yeah.
see Lubbock was like riling you there a little bit there. So, we're going to have to see what's going on. We're going to have to come see your museum, obviously, right? That's a thing.
Correct.
We must do it. Yeah. So it's you're saying it's not just art, but you do have art exhibits. Are these from the different tribes in your vicinity for people? Because the 5
Okay.
tribes, I want people to understand, and also for them to understand 5 civilized tribes. That's a interesting term.
It is, and that term actually was coined by George Washington, and it
Wow.
was during European contact. Those 5 tribes in Southeast United States are what most emulated what the Europeans were used to. They had their own government. They had a religion. They weren't a nomadic people. They didn't follow a food source. So that's what those tribes actually, for lack of a better word, got along with the colonists at that time.
Mhm.
So that's how they were coined civilized.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So
And so what are the 5 tribes?
they are the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, the Muskogee Creek, and the Seminole.
There we
So
go.
that where we
Lisa.
are recording right now, where we're in Cherokee land, stretch all the way to Oklahoma.
Mhm.
Correct.
Okay, but does that go because of what happened in history, or was that like how it was naturally? I don't know how to explain that part. You know what I mean? Was that where they were originally without people interfering?
That's where the Cherokee were up, and they were in the northern part of that area that the tribes were in. If you go, the Cherokee are actually a branch off of the Iroquois, but if you don't get Iroquois until you get up to around the New York area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that actually went south, and then further south from that is the Seminoles. And then as you start working your way west, that's where you're going to run into the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, and then the Muskogee Creek.
Does your museum help people understand, like, this is the difference between what happened with Native Americans in regards to reservations and then the free, because there's, like, I know some Paiute tribes were free. They said, I'm not going. I'm going free.
Okay, and that is, we do that. The way that we've got the museum split up is on our first floor, which is mostly our history and culture area. There's one room that is the map room, or the removal room, and it shows what the Trail of Tears each tribe took. Each tribe had a different way that they ended up in Oklahoma. For example, the Seminoles never signed the Indian Removal Act of 1830, but they came across through the Gulf of Mexico and then up the Mississippi River to get to Oklahoma. So that's their own trail, their own story. But so that's the first area, and then we gear it towards our audience. So we're definitely not going to talk about death and destruction with second graders, but so each visitor gets that unique experience about what had happened. And there were several removals. It wasn't just one removal. The first removals were actually voluntary. If you sold your land to the government, you got a larger parcel of land when you got to Oklahoma, and you got to bring your livestock, your household items, your slaves, anything that you had, you could bring with you. On the forced removal, you basically brought what you could carry. And so, and it was all based on a horse. When the horse gave out, that's when you stopped and camped. If the horse kept going, you kept going. So then our next room is what we call the tribal room. In the tribal room, each of the 5 tribes maintains their own case within that. So if it's something that's either art or history or culture or religion or politics, that's what they choose to put in that. We leave that up for the whole year. It gets swapped out every January. Then across from that, we've got what we call the artifact room, and the artifact room has exhibits that change out regularly. Right now, we have one that's based on the Code Talkers. The last Choctaw Code Talker passed away in 2017. Now, the odd thing is that's been up for about 3 years. We're right next door to the VA hospital, and so that's a very popular exhibit for us. So until we're told to take it down, we're going to keep it up. But then we also have an exhibit on stickball. We have an exhibit on the McGirt decision, which is something that changes daily, it seems like, around here. But it's just kind of the overview of it, because we have people coming in, do you still own your land? Do you not own your land? If I kill you, what happens? If you kill an Indian on your own land, but you're not.
That kind of all kinds of
weird things.
God, I thought I was weird before we started recording this interview. Like, no, apparently I'm not as bad. But no, I mean, just no, because I think this is an important thing of being able to have a conversation. And I think sometimes people don't think you can do that in a museum. It's like,
well, I think one thing, Alicia, too, is we've talked a little bit about this in the past. The Jefferson Highway has so many different cultural elements, but some of the other historic highways. But in this area, if you want to come in this area, spend a few days and just delve into the native culture, you can spend a lot of time here going to museums such as Sean's. There's the Choctaw Cultural Center on the route, not very far away. It's Cherokee a museum and their headquarters. Not very far away is Oklahoma and the Muskogee Nation. And my wife and my children are Muskogee Creek. So, it's just part of the culture here. And it's, Muskogee is a very historical place as far as Western history. And that's another reason that, that we got so much interest from True West and all, because so much Western history happened right around us. And you can see,
it's not just about cowboys anymore.
No, it's not.
No, but
I want to bring our next guest, Victoria Chick, on, and she's a contemporary figurative artist, art historian, art educator. She's working on creating a Southwest museum, a fine art museum and education center in Southwest New Mexico, where she is based out of in Silver City area. And it's I was kind of, now I've got to this point where I think the Midwest is part is like the vein of the Southwest is kind of weird, because the way we travel full time. And Victoria, she's been on our show for years. I mean, literally years since we started the show, and we've known her even when we were a print magazine. And the thing with Victoria is, not only is she an amazing artist, and she makes people think with her art, going, what was she thinking when she painted that? And then she'll go, oh yeah, well, look at this, and I'm going to show you this, and they're going to go, ooh. But she has movement in her art that I think is very important. Movement. She sees the finer details of things and sees that in other artists. And she grew up, and I said this before we started recording, I know it sounds weird, but she grew up on the Jefferson Highway and studied on the Jefferson Highway. She understands the art of the Midwest. And as we started traveling to the Midwest, because she used to come on shows and start talking about the Midwest, we're like, yeah. And then we went to the Midwest, and I went, oh my God, we did winter in the Midwest. We need to talk about light versus lighting in the winter versus New Mexico. We need to do this whole new thing. And I'm so happy to have you on the show, Victoria. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Lisa. I'm happy to be there. I'm really happy to listen to everybody's stories.
Cool.
And you're right. Even though I live in New Mexico now, which I love, I'm rooted in the Midwest. So when you talk about Oklahoma, even Arkansas a little bit, Missouri and
It's
higher
Missouri, not Missouri.
to Minnesota. I'm right with you.
Well,
Yeah.
and then you've got a cookbook from Natchitoches, Louisiana. So
I do, and they'll have to tie me up to get it away from me. So
I know. As soon as we started covering Natchitoches, she said, "I have a cookbook."
Well, that cookbook that she has is a treasure. We were talking about it today, and it really is one of the rare ones, so that's a good one.
Cool.
yeah,
You better hold on. Victoria knows how to collect things. Let me tell you, she collects she collects early 19th and 20th century art, and that's what's led her to now open this museum and get people behind her to do this. She understands how that really helps a community, and I think that's an important thing. I do want to get into the artists on the highway. So Victoria, I'm going to go to you because we talked about this. You did a whole article on Eric Bransby, and we talked to Liberty, Missouri, the city council. Hey, thank you, City of Liberty, Missouri. Man, they answered back. They sent me photos of the murals of Eric Bransby. And I was like, wow, they were so fast. I'm like, thank goodness, because we were on deadline. And it seems like there's a lot of art on the highway. And so when you think about the Jefferson Highway going from Winnipeg to New Orleans, I mean, that's going to be kind of overwhelming thinking about the artists there. But Thomas Hart Benton, I think, would be one of the first people you would think of.
Well, he is the first person I think of. And there's since we've been talking about the Jefferson Highway, I've gone back and researched a little bit, and Joplin is full of murals. Thomas Hart Benton, of course, his murals in the city hall, and his nephew, I believe, has one in the same building. So those are the two when we talked before, those were the two people we concentrated on. But Joplin has any number of murals outside of buildings. And so those are probably the things that most people see. At the gateway to the town coming from the north, there's a wonderful, wonderful mural. I don't know the people that did it, but and then there's one just on the Route 66 called the American Ribbon. That is it says welcome to Joplin or welcome to Missouri. Several of the murals deal with Route 66. I haven't seen one that says Jefferson Highway, but there should be one.
We
Definitely.
share the route right in there. So Route 66 and the Jefferson's older, but they use most of the
Okay.
Jefferson routing in this area. And
Good.
you mentioned the visitor center. Those are friends of ours. They are members of Jefferson Highway Association. And we've actually had a bus tour that stopped and got to see those in our past. So
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh.
And so Victoria, give everybody your history of the highway of your life. Because I keep saying, she was raised on the highway.
Well,
That sounds it sounds like she was in Moses in a little basket
Yeah,
floating down the highway.
I was born in Minnesota, and I lived pretty close to what was the Jefferson Highway. I lived in a community called Little Canada, which was outside of St. Paul.
Oh, wow.
Until I was about 13, and then my folks moved to Missouri, and I lived in Liberty. And Liberty was a historic town at that time. A lot of Jesse James and
Yeah,
daylight
cool.
bank robbery and all that kind of stuff. So then I went to the University of Missouri at Kansas City, and Eric Bransby was my teacher there. He lived at that area and taught for 20 years at the university. And during that time, he made all kinds of murals. He did the ones in Liberty. He did ones at Parkville, which is pretty close to Jefferson Highway too. He at Park College, and he did murals for 4 other colleges in that area.
Wow.
So he was really active.
Cool.
And
That's
you
really cool.
gave Nancy and I hell for when we were in Overland Park, which is on the Jefferson Highway, and saying you should have gone
Yeah.
here, and here. And we're like, oopsie. And so now, and then we went by Liberty, Missouri, and she was like, you went by, you didn't stop. And so like from now on, we will never leave Victoria out of that text mail chain of when Nancy and I travel the highway.
I think you probably shamed the people in Liberty into probably putting a sign up this year.
I don't know,
but they have something to look at.
I just think it's great. I mean, is Liberty, Missouri, is that directly on the highway, Roger?
it is part of a route that was done over to Excelsior Springs and around that way. It's northern Missouri is one of the most confusing parts of the route because there was a lot of different options in this area and towns fought over it.
Yeah.
It's a long-winded story we're not going to get into in this show, but we did we did a rally during COVID actually in 2021 up there, and we stayed in Excelsior Springs, and we got to go on the square in Liberty. We got to go to the museum there where the bank robbery was, and they have an awesome. There's a lady in there that's, I guess, it's been a couple of years. She was 90 something. She gave us a tour of all tours in that drugstore museum there on the square.
Wow.
So, it's a really good place to go, and there's a lot to see up in that area. And every town has a story up there, and
that's cool.
it's really good.
Well, it is confusing trying to get through that, because the highway is not one highway.
You just have to kind of pick one, and I think it makes it kind of fun because I always do a different one when I come back. So I'm always discovering.
Yeah, do one the one way up
and we've done the Arkansas side that's not supposed to be, but we do it anyway.
Not far from there is our community of the year in Plattsburgh, Missouri, and they have had their whole town and that whole county. They're working on the signage of Jefferson Highway.
Yes,
it's really they even had a float, the Jefferson Highway float in their parade this year. So
cool.
That's awesome.
It's growing up that area.
Well, I want to go to Arlene. I want to go to Arlene in Natchitoches, Louisiana. Natchitoches is part of the Cane River National Heritage Area and also has one of our newest national park units, which is the Cane River Creole National Historical Park. And that's how we first met Arlene back in 2000. 2013, I think it was, Arlene, 2000. Yeah, 13. I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, 10 years ago. I
Long
feel like
time
I've known,
ago.
I feel like we've
Yeah.
known you since I was born. Seriously, that's how I feel.
Oh, hello.
But Arlene, in Natchitoches, you go to Natchitoches and people smile at you and say hi. It's a big deal. Honestly, I know that sounds weird, but it's really nice to be in a place
No,
where
it's a
people are
fr- it's
friendly.
a it's a very friendly
Yeah.
city, and
It's
you
not a
can tell the
city.
difference.
Well, I
Well,
know it's the
town
oldest city. It's the
That
oldest
Southern
city.
hospitality.
Yeah, Southern hospitality. That's true and
Yeah.
authentic until they say, she's so special. Oh, then you're in trouble. But no, really,
Well,
Arlene, one of we went to Cane River Creole National Historical Park and Melrose Plantation. And so when we go to these plantations, it's tense history, right? This is hard
yeah.
history for a lot to swallow, but also important to connect with. And I think our park services, whether it's a national park service, a state, all of that, really do a good way of interpreting, here's the truth. And Melrose Plantation, uh, you know, Melrose, it's
You
beautiful,
know.
and then you get into this crazy story. I mean, the family history. So you can't
Right.
just go right into Clementine Hunter without explaining Melrose Plantation just a
Melrose
little bit.
Plantation.
How do you do that? And
Well,
yeah, good luck. You go, girl.
well, Melrose Plantation was founded by the McGuire family, and Marie Therese Quan was the matriarch. She was actually born and raised in the household of Saint Denis, the founder of Natchitoches, and the commandant at the post, at Fort St. John Baptiste. So I used to always say she was privy to see how trading was done, because that's what he did. He came to Natchitoches and established a trading post, and so she witnessed him trading with the Indians and to the Spanish and to the West. And as she became a young adult, she had 15 children, 5 with an Indian slave, and then she had 10 children with Claude Thomas Pierre McGuire, a white Frenchman who came here, and they had 10 children together, and that's how they actually, acquired Melrose Plantation. She eventually had been given her freedom, as did most of her children, and they acquired land grants. And in order to acquire the land grants, they needed labor to cultivate the land. So, yeah, it's a strange story, but yep, they were born into slavery, but became free people of color, and also became the wealthiest free people of color in America in the early 1800s.
But
So Melrose Plantation,
kids.
her third son, Louis McGuire, actually built Melrose, and she lived in Yucca House, which was built in the late 1700s on the grounds of Melrose. It was originally called Yucca Plantation, and then when Miss Cammie Henry acquired it in the late 1800s, they renamed it Melrose Plantation. But along came Clementine Hunter. She was not a slave. She worked in the fields picking cotton, and she was a domestic worker at Melrose in the early, 1930s, 1940s. And Miss Cammie had lost her husband. She was raising 7 children, mistress of the plantation. So she couldn't travel, but she invited artists and writers to come and stay with her on her plantation and work and paint and do their thing, quilting, what have you. So Clementine picked up paint left over from one of the artists and started painting scenes of what she knew, and that was growing up, on the plantation, whether it was wash day or picking cotton, those kinds of scenes. And, I mean, she, like I said, she's self-taught, and her works of art have been displayed in the Louvre in Paris. She had many great people that collected her art and still do. Oprah Winfrey was a big fan. Joan Rivers had actually come to Natchitoches back in the 1980s and purchased some of her artworks. She recently, in the last several years, I mean, she lived to be 101 years old. She died in
Wow.
1988. But she's had most recently one of the largest art exhibits at the African American Museum of the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. And I had the pleasure of going there. They did a documentary, and it was shown at the museum. And her art, they said that her art display that was on display was one of the largest art exhibits they've ever had. And, you know, at one time, so many pieces of her art displayed at one time at the museum. So it was special, and she was special. You know,
Well-
she was something else.
It's own,
cool.
you know, hashtag only Louisiana, let me tell you. And I do want to give a shout out to Carolyn Dormon, because, you know, Carolyn Dormon was more of an educational person. And as Victoria knows, I have this thing that other people know too, that they do. I mean, if you're into nature, there's this art form of understanding botany and plants, well, obviously
Yeah.
botany, but
She
birds.
was a
Right.
naturalist. We wouldn't
Yeah,
have
the
the Thatch National Forest without Carolyn Dorman. She is our founder, basically, of the only national forest that Louisiana has, which is Cosachi. And she did. She went out there and drew every native Louisiana plant you can imagine, and recorded it, and had published several books, about all those, native plants, and just.
Has anybody seen the movie where the crawdads sing? Like, that's like almost like Carolyn Dorman in a weird way.
That's right.
I was thinking of her when I watched that, and because it's like someone who sits and Nancy understands this from her time and doing her work with Joy Adamson in Africa and documenting. There's an art form to documenting where you're still doing art, but you're being able to do art to show someone something. It's still art, and it's still by documentarian, and Victoria, we've talked about this on shows, right? About avian artists and botany. There's something so special about it. And I don't think I do photography and everything, but there's photography, but there's something where an artist can fix what you didn't get in the photo, especially back in the day, right? Where an artist can sit and study and go, oh no, this is where it really is. Whereas a photographer has that one point. And historically,
it's chemical in a way, in that paintings are softer, and photographs, if you really mess with them a lot, you can make them that way, but the colors are more stark, if I can use that word. When you're painting and you're trying to match exactly what you see, where a camera just records what it's a mechanical item. It's not a human. So what does the camera see versus what you see?
Oh my gosh, are we going AI again?
No, I'm just no, but it's true. Like, does the camera see exactly what you see? Sometimes it seems a lot more than what you saw, because you're focusing on one thing, right? Nice. And so it records all this other stuff, and then you're like, oh gosh, no, I didn't want that. I have depth of field, blurred that out, do this, do that. But as an artist, you paint exactly, or you try to paint exactly what you want to paint. That always work out, right, Victoria? But
right,
you're focusing on one thing and trying to do the best to do what you feel you're looking at, whereas the camera is mechanical. And there's a big difference between human and mechanical. Big difference.
This is interesting, because one of the things we're talking about is offering tourists that come to our area through the museum, offering them our art experience, and offering them to supplies and stuff to record their impressions of things, and so they can take those home. Photography is cool too, I think, because not everybody has time to spend doing, building up a piece of art. So they need something to remember their trip, and photography really works for that. But it's nice to be able to like go to a special place like you're talking about, and what you're doing is recording your impressions, not necessarily detail.
Well, two people can stand at the same place, look at the same thing, and see something completely different.
Well, I'm going back to Carolyn Dormon, who actually documented. So she's one of those who it's not like an emotional art form, though she obviously cared about the land and the nature and the birds and the bees and everything. She documented it by trying to get the colors right, the body specifications right. There's an art form, especially with pencils, and I think they did a lot with pencils, watercolors, more than painting, because to do an oil painting of here's this species would not happen. But they did, like Carolyn Dormon really did this. Like she should be, I'm sorry, but she should be far bigger than the forest. Like what she documented and how her art is so huge. Sorry, Arlene, I love this woman to death, but because her art it was documenting the iris, the wild iris, when people didn't think they really had iris growing. This is the elder pappy tree. The pappy tree is one of the biggest trees in Louisiana. She documented and showed exactly what it was. And isn't that even how our national parks came about, where these artists that didn't do, and I'm not going against art as art, like abstract and all of that, but they needed to be artistic and realistic at the same time to be able to show people what it is, which is also going to the same thing as murals on the Jefferson Highway, about telling the stories of the towns on the highway. Like muralists would go in, like Eric Bransby and Thomas Hart Benton would, hey, I've got some swishy stuff around here, but here's the story. You know what I mean? There's this balance between art and realism that comes together with this kind of thing, and I think it goes with the botany and the nature art and the murals in a weird way. What do you think, Victoria? She's like,
I'm mulling that over in my head, because you're right. I mean, you've got people pay for different reasons, and Bransby, of course, was trying to please the town that wanted the mural, and they wanted the history of the area, and so he had to do a lot of research, and to please his client, whereas some people paid for themselves. And other people then like it. So they probably people have paid for themselves a little more freedom to do what they they want to do. But it's all important to my opinion, because I like everybody. I like almost everybody's painting, because I think that people are painting from the heart. Even when they're like Bransby, who have a client that they have to please too. I think they get into the subject, and more happens because of that. They see things. Each person sees things differently. So you get if you look at pictures of the same area by different people, you know that they see it differently, and each presentation of what they see gives you some other knowledge of that area. So,
which is the beauty, like music.
It's like when you take a commission as an artist, and you look at the person asking you to paint a specific subject
Uh-huh.
for a specific amount, you can already just tell what kind of painting you need to do. As like for it, if it's wild and wonderful, okay, you can try an abstract, but probably not for most people.
I think this is a little different though on
because
the highway.
yeah,
I
well,
mean,
yeah, exactly, because you're doing a specific
it's a
subject.
specific subject and it's a
But
community pride. It's
right,
pride of your
but
community, which is really huge. And I think I just want to go back to Carolyn Dorman with Arlene, and I want to go to Sean too. Arlene, with Carolyn Dorman, I mean, her work was actually instrumental of documenting species, right? Her art. That was my point
Yeah,
about
she was
this,
a
about the
botanist,
highway.
but that was her main thing. She was a botanist. Now she studied art in college, but that wasn't her main thing. She just, like you said, she did documentary art and of nature for the
And
most
she was
part.
good at it. I mean, it was I mean, when I look at it, I want to go sleep in that writer's camp, and that's a goal of mine.
Okay,
And
when you come, remind me.
I want to go stay in there, and I want to go hang out with the grandpappy tree. But Sean, I want to go back to you over with the Five Civilized Tribes Museum. Again, everybody in Muskogee, Oklahoma, on the Jefferson Highway. All this, I mean, we're talking about all kinds of forms of art, right? So when you look at your gallery and bringing art collections in, do you have, I mean, that's got to be a little interesting because it's different, right? It is, some people go, oh, that's craft, right? And then it's like, yeah, it is. It's part of our life.
Yeah, it's very unique because we only represent those 5 civilized tribes. There's 39 tribes in Oklahoma, but we only do those 5 tribes. But out of those 5 tribes, I mean, our private collection has 274 artists in it. Over $4.5 million worth of art in it. And so we have the largest Jerome Tiger collection there is. And Jerome Tiger, who happens to be on exhibit right now, changed Indian art in the 60s. If you wanted to buy Indian art, you were buying it either at a gas station or on the side of the road. And I'm not saying that to be crass, but that's just the way it was. And so, and typically Indian art was a short, pudgy person with long braided hair doing a task. And Jerome was like, my people were warriors. We were fighters. We were fit. We weren't. This is not the stereotype that we were. And Jerome literally changed Indian art with what he did. He was only a professional artist for 5 years. Absolutely no training. He went to the Cleveland Institute for about a year and a half. Hated school, dropped out, and became and it just beckons. If he was still alive, what would he be doing now? Kind of thing. And so we've got 37 master artists that we deem as masters. Basically, once they become a master artist, they're not allowed to enter any of our shows except for our master show. And oddly enough, these are long-term established artists. Joan Hill was one of them. Joan Hill has pieces hanging in Buckingham Palace. Virginia Stroud has pieces in the Smithsonian. Kelly Haney did the Guardian on top of our state capitol. And so, there's several people that got their start here that, we've got their original. We've got their start.
Wow.
We've just inducted last year Roy Boney Jr. As a new master artist. This year we're inducting Dylan Cavan as a Choctaw is a master artist. So it's one of those things that you have to keep perpetuating that art so that people can see that it's not what you thought it was.
I love this. And can you give everybody a background on the building itself, the Union Agency building?
Yeah, at the end of the Trail of Tears, when you got to Oklahoma, each tribe had an area that they would go to get their land allotments and their roll assignments. And for this area, it would have been Boggy Creek. The problem was, except for the Choctaw and the Chickasaw had one building that they went to, and everybody else had their own separate. The problem was when you got to your agent could be out hunting, he could be dead, he could be there, who knew where he was or what was going on. So they decided we're going to do one building for all tribes to come to get that information. So that's why the building was built. It was originally, it cost $5,999 to build it back in 1875.
That's
And
crazy.
so they used it for about a year and a half. Then they moved the offices. Then the railroad came through, statehood and everything. So they moved the offices down to this town of Muskogee. At that point, it became a Creek Freedman School and orphanage. Then in the 30s and 40s, Alexander Posey's wife made it into a tea room and a dance hall upstairs, and it was called the Chateau. It underwent some odd transformations because to make it look more Italian, the Chateau, less Indian. There were some windows added, some porches taken away, some doors added.
Funny.
And then because it was a federal property, it went next door to the VA hospital. They never used it at all. It went into really bad disrepair. They were actually going to level it. And then in 1955, Senator Ed Edmondson took it from a federal property to a city property, and then the Dakota Indian Club, which is a group of women of Native American descent, came in and said, that's the perfect building for a museum. They had to raise about $130,000 to bring it to what it is now. We had things like electricity and indoor plumbing and an elevator that needed to be added. And so that's where we are. And we've had actually raised money because we were going to move the whole facility, but the building's as important as the art and the stuff inside of it.
Yeah.
And so we actually decided not to move and stay in a very small building. And so but it beckons us to change out and to do things to be refreshed more often than
that's
what
amazing.
most museums do.
Yeah.
Can you give everybody an idea of what's coming up for exhibits? I know you have rotating exhibits, and people tune in, whenever they want to, so they could be tuning in 2 months from now. So
okay, for the month of August and September is Jerome Tiger. We do Jerome every August, either July, August, or August and September, because that's the month that he died in. Jerome was so instrumental in getting this museum, the art into it, and getting people to participate in it. So is another native Muskogee, Nettie Wheeler. But for the most part, we honor him by doing that. He's a master of heritage for us. Then in October, we're doing a Halloween show. It's called Spooky Things. It's going to be things that are hidden in art, because there's a lot of myths and legends that the natives use and they paint into it. So we're going to actually kind of put that in it. And then November will be our master show. And then in December, we'll do, it's called Winter Wonderland. And it's going to be everything that from our private collection that is based on winter, snow, all the fun things that we love in Oklahoma.
Do you have snow in Oklahoma? I'm just asking you like a really stupid person. I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But this is amazing. I really,
every March
go ahead.
Every March we do a student show. That happens to be my favorite show. And I mean, I give out cold hard cash for the people that participate in it. And it's 5 tribes students, 7th through 12th grade. And then we roll into April into our Art Under the Oak show. And then we do our calendar every October. So in October, we'll know what all shows will be for next year. And then in January, the first 2 weeks were closed. So during that close time is when we pull out. That's when the tribes come in and update their displays. And that's when we come in and change out our stuff in the artifact room.
Wow. I've got to go.
Schedule.
I am like, Roger, we shouldn't have had lunch. We should have just gone to the museum. Though we needed lunch, but I'm just saying, like, we need to go back, and we will, because we'll be going. Well, we will. We're going to be crossing the country again real soon, so we'll be coming to see you, because I think this museum sounds amazing.
Like I said, this is a great part of just staying in this area for 2 or 3 days and taking on all the culture here.
We were Indian capital of the world.
Yeah, Muskogee at one time was called the Indian capital of the world.
Wow, I had no idea about that.
the first Native university was here, Bacone College.
Right. It's called
Bacone
Indian
College,
University then.
Yep. And oddly enough, since we're talking about art, they had a tremendous art program there. Dick West, Cecil Dick, A.C. Blue Eagle,
A.C. Blue Eagle
were all teachers. And they actually have a style of art called Baconian style. It's flat art, and it's something that came from Muskogee, Oklahoma. And it's phenomenal when you look at it, because it's the subject matter, but it doesn't. There's no background. It's a white field behind, or a colored field. It's a plain field behind them, so you see the subject matter that they were doing.
Yeah.
Is it similar to Japanese?
I've got a quick question for you.
Is it similar to Japanese art? Like, just trying to.
It could be, yeah.
I'm just trying to get an idea.
Not as reverent as Japanese art, but yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Roger. Sorry.
You have outside the building there. There is a stone in the ground that says Muskogee.
There is.
And the historian in me, the background I've always told is that was meant to be in the Washington Monument and never made it.
You're correct. It was. When at the time Oklahoma was before statehood, Oklahoma was supposed to be two different states. You were going to have Sequoia Nation or Indian Territory in Oklahoma, and so if Sequoia Nation would have been a state, Muskogee would have been the capital. The first governor's mansion would have been 17th, and 4 blocks.
Right.
Well, a little bit more than 4 blocks, but it would have been here. And so that would have been the stone that we would have put into the Washington Monument. At that time, there's 2 states that did not have a stone. It was Oklahoma and Arizona. Arizona put a piece of petrified wood in. I don't know what memo they got, but they did wood instead of a stone. And we didn't.
Well, it is kind of.
The irony about the stone, though, is the stone has been made into a bench. And the funny thing about it is Muskogee on the stone is misspelled. And so that's one reason why we couldn't send it. The other was because we weren't a state. And then in 1932, the Washington Monument added the elevator in. They went under a huge renovation. And at that point, we did put a stone in, but it came from Oklahoma City because we were now Oklahoma. And so they actually sent an invitation to Muskogee by error to participate in it, and the stone, the invitation is the top of the bench, and it is a stone invitation, and it went to the Lions Club, and then when the Lions Club closed down, they brought it over to us.
Oh my gosh!
I gave a mystery. I gave a mystery tour.
That's a good story.
Well, I'm going to go back to Arlene because she's going back east. She's going back east because Louisiana is back in the Macy's parade this year again, right? I'm just going to say, if we're going to represent, we got to represent,
We are. Louisiana's going to have a float again this year in the Macy's parade and again in Los Angeles for the Rose Parade come January 1st, 2024.
Hey, listen, I just want to say, you guys have, you had Lainey on at the Rose Parade, and man, she's kicking some butt, like music-wise.
Yeah, Lainey Wilson was on the float, and then the year before that, John Baptiste was on the float in the Macy's parade.
He just got a new album out.
9 Grammys. Yeah, talk about good music, huh? But yeah, I'm actually Lainey's knocking it out the park. She's doing great. She's a Louisiana girl.
Well, she's not far from you, really. I was looking up her, landscape of where she's from. It's not far.
Very small town, right in northeast Louisiana. Yeah.
Yeah, not far from you. And I think even, John Baptiste, I was looking, he's got a new album out now and in different colors of vinyl according to where you are.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool, But anyway, we're talking about art. I got to give a shout out to music,
Funny story about Lainey real quick. She played here in Natchitoches during the Christmas festival way back when. If you can imagine that. Yep. She played on the stage at a couple of our Christmas festival shows. You know how we always have live entertainment on the stage before we do the fireworks. So we laugh about that. Yeah, we knew her when.
Yeah, I mean, Lainey, but she's got a good head on her shoulders. And music, when we talk about artists, music is part of it. And, you know, you go through Natchitoches, and I know everybody knows about Dr. John and New Orleans and everything, but you go to Natchitoches, if you get in the car with Arlene, she'll show you all the rundown juke joints where Fast Domino used to play.
That's
And,
right. That's right.
right? Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash used to go fishing, right?
Johnny Cash used to go fishing right here on Cane River. Him and Johnny Horton had a bait company where they used to make fishing baits. So,
See,
you know
that's
me,
so
I always
cool.
have a story about something somewhere, about somebody or something.
That's right.
Arlene knows. Arlene knows. We love Arlene. And we can't wait to come back and see you. We'll be back in Natchitoches. We're going to come out for the Christmas festival after all
Yeah.
these years of talking about it. We get to actually
We have to go
experience
see
it.
it.
Well, it was a
It's gonna-
pleasure tonight to talk to all your guests about their art and what they're working on, and it's just amazing, you know, that we can share these stories about the Jefferson Highway and some of the things to see and do along the way. So,
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to say something because before anybody hangs up, because all this talking to you guys has been really wonderful, and it's brought back a memory to me of when I was 5 years old, living in Minnesota. My father packed all of us in his Hudson, and we drove to New Orleans. And I have no recollection of what roads we travel on, but at that time, I'm sure that part of our trip, at least, was on the Jefferson Highway.
Mhm.
And I remember,
to be.
I mean, I went to plantations. I went when we got to Louisiana. We saw other things. I mean, it was a fabulous trip.
Awesome.
And I've just relived it, you know, talking to you. So thank
cool.
you.
That's awesome.
That's way
That's
cool.
awesome. Well, this is the
Yeah.
thing. I mean, the Jefferson Highway's been going since 1915. Not that Victoria has been going since that time. I'm just saying. But 1915, right, Roger? 1915, Bill Meredith started it. Am I getting it right? Nope.
Yes, you are. Except Edwin Meredith. Yes, sir.
Edwin. Sorry. I just, let me get it.
Hey, old
I gave him
roads
a
are
new
the
name.
best roads.
I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Sean, for joining us from the Five Civilized Tribes Museum in Muskogee. Again, the website is fivetribes.org. Please type out the number 5, fivetribes.org. Go there. We're going to go for sure. Thank you, Sean, for joining us. It's been a real pleasure, and we want to come for sure. We're going to come see you. Got to.
Oh, absolutely. I look forward to it.
Thank you. And
be
truly,
fun.
we do end up at places. Look what happened.
Yeah,
we
we
went to
do.
Honey Springs at the battlefield in Oklahoma after a show. All of a sudden, we just did it, right, Roger? We went to the
Yes.
Gallo. We did. It was cool. And then we went to Eufaula. We went to the lakes. We went. I mean, it's the experience you have on the Jefferson Highway. All I can say is it is going it's different all the way down. So if you want a really good road trip, this is a good road trip. So
Yeah, it is.
Everyone keep up with Natchitoches, Louisiana. Go to natchitoches.com, which is NATCHITOCHES.com. Like Disney, whatever.
It sounds like the Mickey Mouse Club.
They have their own way of pronouncing things, which we love. And when you go there, you're going to love it even more because they have the best meat pies on the planet, and they've got good music, good people, and it is fun. And we want to thank Victoria coming on the show. Victoria, thank you. It's been cool. Jefferson Highway,
I appreciate
baby.
being asked. Yeah, yeah.
I just feel like you were like in the
Appreciate it.
Moses cuddled, like you should be in that little basket. You were just
So,
traveled down the highway as a
And
kid.
Victoria, is it Missouri or Missouri?
You said Missouri.
It's Missouri. Missouri.
Ah,
Yes.
okay.
And I've got a question. I've got a question for Tim. When I was in southern Missouri and northern Arkansas, and people said Chickasha, and is that just an ignorant way of pronouncing?
There's a town called Chickasha, but it's the Chickasaw tribe.
Okay,
and they're spelled completely different.
Okay, I'm glad to know that.
Oh,
thank you.
Oh, I'm
That
glad
is
to know that too, because I've driven through too. Yeah.
Chickasha, Chickasha,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Okay. Well, that's a good learning.
Okay.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool.
I appreciate me knowing it.
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah. No,
Wow.
very cool. No, but that's the thing. You know, and that's the thing about traveling the highway, and I think Roger will echo this, is road tripping is a fun way of learning history. And if your kids are not into it, and listen, travel will, I just did a
Yeah.
panel discussion on artificial intelligence.
Oh,
So we
geez.
talked about the younger generation and how they understand it more than probably everybody on the panel today. Not saying anything, you know, not
Yeah.
aging anyone, but do we all know about critical decision and critical thinking and decision making? And travel will do that for people. You travel, you have to make a decision. Do you take this exit or not? You need to get on it. So I'm bringing that back to the Jefferson Highway with your family or loved ones, or doing a solo trip. You're going to have so many multiple amazing experiences, from food to art to history. I would say, Roger, this is a good way for people to kind of reconnect, right? Those generational gaps, and kind of get back into, you know what I mean? It's like, come on, we can unite on the generational
I've
stuff.
said this before, you know, I took my son on a trip on the Jefferson Highway and he wasn't the most excited to go on it. And why are we going here, Dad? But he was 17 at the time. But yeah, he got through and said, Dad, that was one of the best trips we ever had. You know, the thing on it is for him is it's an adventure. If you look at it the way I travel, it's an adventure every day. You learn, there's something to discover. There's things that you know you're going to go to and you plan, but if you take the time and you get off the 4-lane roads and you go on these trips and you stop at these diners and you stop at these stores in these small towns, and you spend time in these community museums that, you know, instead of just going into the mega places that there are, you will be surprised at how much fun you will have and how much adventure you will get. And so that's the way I look at it. So yes, and that's part of what we are as you travel through this, is we are a portal of that all the way up.
No, and that's so true, because I mean, as Lisa and I have been traveling the country for a few years now, the best places are the small places. Big cities, yeah, you can find great things in big cities, absolutely. But if you really want to get, okay, I would normally say down and dirty, but that's probably the wrong word. Just get on with it. Get this. Arlene's laughing. I can hear you. If you want to really understand what really happened, you go to a small town.
Yeah. Well, yeah, cities have it, but it's by neighborhood. That's what we've learned too. It's by neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree with
that.
You go into big cities. Go ahead.
Another really cool thing is that a lot of the tribes that were in the Southeast United States, when they came to Oklahoma, they brought their town names with them. So there's Eufaula, Alabama, there's Eufaula, Oklahoma, there's Wewoka, Georgia, there's Wewoka, Oklahoma. So that's another kind of cool thing, is to see what they brought with them from where they came from.
Oh, that's really important, Sean, because I also think that it's very difficult for folks to understand where to even begin the Native American history adventure. Like I say, adventure in a way of wanting to learn and scared
discovery.
to say the right thing. I mean, even before we were talking on the show and recorded, I was like, I have this story and I can't do it right. And I don't think a lot of people mean the wrong thing and could say the wrong thing and the right thing, the wrong thing. I think people just don't know what to do sometimes. And when you go to a museum, it kind of puts things in a little bit of a perspective for you versus, and like if you go to a battlefield, when we went to Honey Springs, like God, my head, just like my heart, my heart, it's like, Natchitoches did it too. Natchitoches has, in Natchitoches, Louisiana, they have the Cane River Creole National Historical Park.
Mhm.
It was established, I was going to say in November 20th, I think it was about 10 years ago. It was new when we got there. But Melrose there's a Melrose part, there's Oakland Plantation, Melrose Plantation. Oh, God, Magnolia, not Melrose, Magnolia. And you go to Magnolia, and there's some crazy stuff there. And there is the slave cabins that were the oldest brick slave cabins in this country that were still there. That doesn't mean it's the oldest. It's just has been preserved.
The ones
Go
that's
in there,
still
and your
there.
body is like, oh, God damn, did this really happen? It did. And people need to
it's important
experience this.
Yeah, and it's important to keep a balance of it too. I mean, we don't want it to be
Yeah.
all
Yes.
doom and gloom, and
Right.
it's like, okay, yes, this happened. Now let's go look at art.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that's
there's
the
a yin and a
interpretation
yang
is,
to it.
yeah, the interpretation, how you do it is so important to understand, because we,
And
like
not be
with
disrespectful.
Native American side, I don't think we really always understand how to, do we say Native American, Indigenous people, what do we say or do? And I think when you go to a museum and you can actually communicate with a docent and connect with the exhibits, you may understand a little bit more. What do you think?
Absolutely.
That sounds like that sounds like a good idea.
And you also learn that that what their views on it are. It's not that far from what we already think we know. Surprisingly enough, because if you ask them, it's like, I don't care if you call me Indian, if you call me, Native American, American Indian, or hey you, just as long as you get my attention.
Well, if you're coming from a place of interest and kindness, you'll be fine.
I agree
Yes.
with what Nancy said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's always the thing.
Because
Is
you can make mistakes on pronunciation, you can make mistakes on dates, years, and what
She's just
historically is
covering
true
me
or-
right there. She was just
or-
covering my tracks. Thank you,
No,
Nancy.
not true. Whatever's true or not true in history, because we really weren't there back then, so we really don't know. We just know what was written.
Mm.
And
So
history was written by the winners.
yeah, see, so you really,
Oh,
I didn't say it. He did it.
yeah,
He
that was
did it.
really,
No,
that
he
was
did
one of
it.
the
I
best
didn't
things
do
I've
it.
ever heard in my life. That is
I
one of the
know,
best
but
things I've ever
I'm
heard.
right there.
Other
So,
than musicians and artists, right? Musicians, artists, I always
but
thought
they're
were
coming from the
oh,
heart and soul
oh,
of what
you just,
they
ooh.
see and how they interpret it. Whereas people who, oh boy, I could so get in
Nah,
trouble.
Nancy, yeah, you don't get us in trouble.
Well, no, if you're
Don't.
writing history and you want it to be the way you think it,
Yeah,
that's
he
how
just
you
said
write it.
history. He just said it. History is written by women.
Exactly.
But
It's true.
musicians, that's why the arts are so important. The
Exactly.
arts. When we talk about the arts on the trail, this is like we've got to close this up here. The arts on
Okay.
I say the trail. I always think a highway and everything is a trail because people travel down it.
Mhm.
The historic Jefferson Highway is a highway. Then I think people were traveling pretty much before it became the highway, the Jefferson
Well, it
Highway.
was a
They
trail
already knew there was a
first.
trail. Roger can close me down on all that, I know, but I think it's important that we look at, hey, this was a highway, people did this, and the arts and the music people use murals. We've done this on so many shows with Victoria. Murals tell the stories of a town. Roger, you know that town that we were talking about before, and I still can't get it right. Strawberry. It's not Strawberry. It's Missouri.
Stanberry, Missouri.
Thank you. One
Stanberry, yeah.
mural. That's it. That's your one mural, and that's all you need to know about the town. The train came in, and they have a center park, and there's really not much around it. I don't know what's going on in the town, but there's a really cool artist just down the road that does all kinds of weird stuff that you can see. It's cool. I mean, I think it's cool.
Metal art.
But if you didn't have that mural, you would not know anything about that town. Nothing. If you
we're starting to see a lot more interest in murals on our highway. We've got a few that are specific, and I've had 2 communities in the last month tell me, Roger, we want to do a mural. Where can we find an artist? So
cool.
If you're a mural artist out there and you want to do a Jefferson Highway one,
I want to. I'll do it.
Contact us at info@jeffersonhighway.org.
This is cool because the murals are really a big deal because it's like a greeting to a town. If you drive through late at night, or like things are closed, or you're early morning, or you're just there for 5 minutes, if you look at a mural, at times it can give you the history and the feeling of the town when it's done right. And I think it's a beautiful thing. But
it shows you that the town cares.
Yeah,
exactly. That's the thing.
It's welcoming. It's so
they may
welcoming.
not have a lot. Yeah.
It's welcoming.
It shows pride into me, that they have
exactly.
Proud of something.
It's like Natchitoches has flower baskets down the street, right?
Yeah.
On Front Street.
You sense their pride.
As soon as you hit Front Street, this town is pride.
But it's so welcoming.
And they have a brick street that they fought for. They have a brick street. The women stood up and said, they held hands and said, we're keeping our bricks. You're not taking our bricks away. Right, Arlene?
Ladies, I'm going to have to get off.
I know. We're going to go.
Sat down on the bricks.
The women sat down and said, we're not doing it. All right, everyone, we got to go. We always get overtime on these shows. It's terrible. But we got to go. But thank you all for listening to Big Blend Radio's Jefferson Highway Show. We thank you. We all are out of time. I mean, we've been naughty. Everyone, keep up with the Jefferson Highway. Go to jeffersonhighway.org. Please become a member, whether you are a traveler or a destination. Check it out. It makes sense. Also, when it comes to Natchitoches, go to natchitoches.com. Everything will be linked in the show notes when it comes to pronouncing that. VictoriaChick.com, that is her website, and that's pretty straightforward. And fivetribes.org is the other website, but thank you all for joining us. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. We are here every 4th Thursday talking about the Jefferson Highway. And obviously, we could carry on talking for 10 years, but we can't. So thank you all. Thank you, guests. Thank you, listeners, for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.